Right, how's everyone doing? Good, I hope, I'm going to talk about a system that I love very much, and that's the Sega Saturn. I love the Sega Saturn, and it's one of my favourite systems of all time. I love it, I really do. And I've had it since 1995. Just the Model 1 Sega Saturn. Uh, Mine came with Virtua Fighter, and the Model 1 controller, the one that sort of looks like a Batman's Batarang, um, or a stealth bomber. I mean, I thought it was awesome, and while Sega did fuck up big time with the Sega Saturn themselves, the system is awesome. It has awesome games in it. And this was my console of choice back in the day. I chose it over the PlayStation and the N64. I didn't get my PlayStation until 1999, and I got my N64 around 2001. So around 5, 6 years I had my Sega Saturn, and I've got no regrets about that. It's an awesome system, awesome games on it. Despite, like I said, Sega themselves fucking up with the launch of the Sega Saturn, um, you know, they felt threatened by the PlayStation and the 3D capabilities it would have and stuff. So Sega's plan with the Sega Saturn was to make it a 2D powerhouse. And they realised that they made a mistake there. They should have made it 3D. Because that's what the PlayStation was going for, that's what the N64 was going for. And Sega should have realised that, because they put out Virtua Fighter and Daytona USA. And before that you had Virtua Racing. So they should have known that 3D was the future, but they decided on 2D. But they realised pretty quick that they fucked up. Before the Sega Saturn was completed, they threw in the second processor to make it capable of 3D. But because of that, programmers didn't know how to program two processors. It was very difficult. It was very hard to get the most out of the Sega Saturn when it comes to 3D. And because the Sega Saturn didn't sell well, they weren't motivated to put in the work for it. Because the way Sega launched the Sega Saturn is one of the stupidest things ever in the video game industry. So the Sega Saturn was meant to have come out in September of 1995, around the same time as the Sony PlayStation. Now, Sega knew how awesome the PlayStation was going to be, and it was rumoured that the Sony PlayStation was going to be $100 cheaper than the Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn was $500 when it came out. The PlayStation was only $400, and the PlayStation was more powerful, and it had games like Wipeout, Tekken, Battle Arena Tashin, then Doom. So Sega decided, fuck, what are we going to do? So they thought the only way that they could beat the PlayStation is if they released it 5 months earlier, in May of 1995. So they'd have a 5 month head start on Sony. So they were hoping by the time the PlayStation would come out, the Saturn would be so much on top, it wouldn't matter. But it didn't work out that way, because Sega just suddenly decided to launch a system without telling anybody. They didn't tell the game developers, hey, your games had to be ready for May instead of September. And they were saying, look, our games aren't ready. I mean, you should have told us beforehand. It takes more than 1 or 2 months to make a game. Sega said, sorry, you have to have your games ready for May instead of September. Well, they felt pissed off by that. Especially third-party developers like, fuck you, Sega, you should have informed us of what you were going to do. Our games aren't ready, and we're not going to put ourselves under stress to get a game released for May when it's not possible. So a lot of these developers says, fuck you, we're going over to Sony, because they knew, just like Sega knew, that Sony's system was far better, it was cheaper, and that was it. And same thing with the retailers, like over in America, KB Toys R Us and other stores says, fuck you, Sega, you didn't inform us of your plans. We've got no shelf space for your consoles. And because you didn't keep us in the loop, we're going to give the shelf space to Sony, and that's what happened. So back in 1995 in May, if you actually went into a shop, you wouldn't see any Sega Saturn because they refused to sell it. because Sega already had a bad history with retailers with the Sega 32X and the Mega CD. So, bad, the worst launch you can imagine for a video game console. So the games that were ready in May were Virtua Fighter, Daytona USA. I believe Bug was available, Blackfire, which is a helicopter game. All these games were rushed, they had frame rate issues, all sorts of problems, and it didn't show off the capabilities of the Sega Saturn. So people said, I'm not going to spend $500 on something that looks like shit and the games run like shit. So back forward big time. So May, June, July, August, I mean the Sega Saturn wasn't selling much, and sports games started coming out. There's nothing exciting on the Sega Saturn. And there was no true Sonic the Hedgehog game. And all the awesome games that were on the Sega Genesis didn't show up on the Sega Saturn, like E-SWAT, Cyber Justice. Like, these are games that I was looking forward to on the Sega Saturn. No sign of them. I don't know, Zero Tolerance, that's another game I was looking forward to on the Sega Saturn. Road Rash. Well, Road Rash eventually did come out by Electronic Arts, but that was already on the 3DO as well. So there wasn't a whole lot of exclusive games for the Sega Saturn and nothing to entice people to buy it. Whereas when Sony came out September as planned, they had tons of games, third-party developers and their own games. It was £100 cheaper, it was more powerful, and with the sold like hotcakes, whereas Sega fucked up big time. And, Sega in 1998 they pulled the whole plug on the Sega Saturn because it wasn't selling. So it was only out for less than 2 years, and Sega discontinued it just like they did with the Sega 32X and the Mega CD. So that was it, curtains for Sega as a hardware manufacturer, and that's why Sega are not the company that they are, not the same anymore. But the Sega Saturn is an awesome system, I love it though. My favourite games are Sega Rally, Daytona USA and Daytona USA Circuit Championship Edition, Panzer Dragoon, I think it's awesome, Resident Evil. We like Doom on the Sega Saturn, we like Hexen, Duke Nukem 3D, Quake, Sega Touring Car Championship, Virtua Cop, Manx TT Superbike, Last Bronx, Fortis Mega Mix, Fighting Vipers, Road Rash when they finally did come out on the Sega Saturn, Need for Speed, Space Hulk, Robotica, just tons of games. But if RPGs are your thing, and beat 'em ups, the Sega Saturn is the system to get. Especially 2D beat 'em ups like X-Men vs Street Fighter, King of Fighters, you name it. Tons of RPG games that came out in Japan that weren't released in America, but are dirt cheap. And the Sega Saturn's cartridge slot there allows for, you can play import games, VCDs, video CDs. The Sega Saturn could even go online with a handful of games. So, awesome system, but it's just a shame that Sega fucked up on it. But I love the Sega Saturn, still to this day works like a charm. And it works with a Bluetooth controllers. That's a Bluetooth dongle there. And it's awesome, in my opinion. Looks brilliant and very, very reliable. Whereas my PlayStation, I had to turn it upside down in order to get it to read discs, but I never had any problems with my Sega Saturn. So awesome stuff. So I just want to put that video out there. I love the Sega Saturn. It's, even though it was a failure, it was my console of choice back in the day. It still is, and I'd really recommend it, especially if you like beat 'em ups and RPG style games. But it has great. I love racing games. I love beat 'em ups. I love first person shooters, and there's loads on the Sega Saturn. So it's awesome in my opinion. And this is the Model 1 Sega Saturn. There's many different models, variations. So awesome in my opinion. So I hope everyone out there has a good day. All the best, and bye bye.